Now normally I like to tell you to solve the problem on your own, but in this video we're going to have me lead through the entire problem so you have a nice example of a fairly long and complicated problem. Even better, we're going to have some sig fig practice in this that connects back to doing a measurement. So the question's set up. We're going to measure how many Hershey's Kisses it would take to get to the center of the Earth. So I'm going to define a unit. I'm making a new unit called an HK, a Hershey's Kiss. And exactly 1 HK, because it's an exact quantity, I have 1 Hershey's Kiss sitting right there. When we hold that up with a ruler, right here's my 2 marking. 1, 2, 3. So we'd be at 23 and it's right on the line, so I put it as 23.0. Also notice that I'm right here on the line for the 0 mark. So we're at 23.0 millimeters for 1 Hershey's Kiss. Anytime that I have an equal sign, that means that I'm going to be able to create a conversion factor from it. Now, equatorial radius of Earth is, and this varies from point to point, but it's about 3,963.2 miles. We're going to go ahead and use that value. But we have to be careful to read it the same way as it's telling us. It's telling me that it's a radius, which means that this is from the center to the outside of the circle. That's an important thing to make sure that we are paying attention to in this definition. So the equatorial radius will be this. Notice that I have 1 unit in this. When I see that I only have 1 unit, that's almost always going to be a really good starting point for doing a calculation because it can't be a conversion factor. There are some problems that will have multiple starting points that will merge in the middle, kind of like a spider web, and you'll find those a lot of the time when you actually have something where you have 2 or 3 facts that only have a single unit associated with each. But anytime you have an equal sign, or you have something where it's divided and it's like meters per second, that will be something you can use the conversion factor. So let's go ahead and lay this one out. We're going to start out with our known value, our 3,963 some miles. We're going to set up another conversion factor. Now, I know that when I'm starting out in the English system, I want to get into the metric system as soon as I can because almost everything we're going to do is going to be centered in the metric system using SI units. I'll just point out that not all metric units are SI and not all SI is metric. They have the same units, but they don't always match up quite the same. We treat them as basically the same though. Okay, so we have our miles. We're going to be in kilometers now. Next thing I need to do is get closer to the idea of getting to Hershey's Kisses. Now I'm in kilometers. I'm going to need to get to millimeters so I can get to Hershey's Kisses. So let's go ahead and convert from kilometers into meters. 1,000 meters, 1 kilometer. Now, remember, if you have one big thing, then you've got to have lots of little things. Otherwise, it's not going to make any conceptual sense. So we have to have lots of meters in 1 kilometer. That's a good way to make sure that you've laid it out correctly. So I've got rid of kilometers and I'm in meters. We're now going to convert things to be in millimeters. For that, I need to use another conversion factor. 1 meter equals 1,000 millimeters. I want meters to be on the bottom so it'll cross cancel. You see that I need 1,000 millimeters on top. If you forgot that when you'd say to yourself, well, I'm picturing a meter stick. It's like this long, actually a little longer, I'm just staying on camera. And it's got 100 centimeters in it. And then in each centimeter, I've got 10 markings for millimeters. So it'd be 10 times the 100 gives me 1,000. You can always regenerate those numbers from memory if you need to, as long as you think of something that you have lots of experience with. So it looks like we're pretty much set up to then use our Hershey's Kisses per millimeter. So 23 millimeters yields 1 Hershey's Kiss. Now notice that we're in the final unit that we need to be in. So what we can do now is we can make sure that everything's going to cross cancel. And it looks like it's going to be in good shape for that, but we'll check it again in a second. I also like to go ahead and pay attention to my sig figs right around this time too. So let's move forward a little bit. I plug it all into the calculator and I get this answer. What I probably should have done before that, though, is I should have checked to make sure that my units were going to cross cancel. So let's go ahead and do that now. Miles have cross canceled. Kilometers cross canceled. Meters, yep. Millimeters, yep. Notice that the only unit remaining is HK. And so Hershey's Kisses will be the appropriate unit for it. We haven't made a mistake and inverted any of these anyplace. The other thing we need to do is consider our sig figs. We started out with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sig figs here. You can see here that I have an exact number, and then here I've got 5 sig figs. This is an exact conversion. So right now I've got 5 sig figs when I pulled it out of my table of conversion factors. Now this is going to be an exact conversion. Exactly 1 kilometer equals exactly 1 meter. So again, this is going to be infinite. Same thing over here. Okay, so now I've got an exact, which means infinite, and it's being divided by something that had 3 sig figs in it. Remember, this was the actual measurement that we did, where we said it was 23.0 millimeters. In other words, the quality of how well we understand how many Hershey's Kisses it takes to get to the center of the planet, we cannot possibly know that it takes exactly, let's see, 277,311,494.7. We can't possibly know that because we're limited to how well we know this Hershey's Kiss in the first place. We know it to a total of 3 sig figs. 5, 5, infinite, 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 and 3. It's all multiplication division rule, which means that I keep the fewest number of sig figs that are present. I should only have 3 sig figs here. So I would be able to say that it's 277 million. And we'll go ahead and put commas in there. A lot of the time we'll actually put spaces in instead. That's kind of more the metric way of writing it. You'll see that throughout most of the world. We use spaces to separate out in the decimals, and then we'll use commas or spaces over here in the whole number side. But in the English system here in the US, we typically will use the commas for it. So I now have my correct value, I have my correct sig figs, and I've got my unit. This would be something that contains all the elements of a correct answer now. But remember, no units, no points, if the calculation involved any units. But we definitely don't know how many Hershey's Kisses it'll take to 10 decimal places. That really goes back to the idea of significant figures.